The 1986 film The Fly is a remake of the 1958 film. And I have to say, this horror film is done real well. And basically, it's about a scientist who accidentally turns himself into a man-fly. I have to say, this is one of the most unique horror films I ever looked at. So basically, in the movie, Jeff Goldblum plays Seth Bundle. He's a scientist who is experimenting with teleportation. And so, after figuring out how to teleport live beings, then he teleports himself not knowingly there's a fly in one of the telepods with him. And over the course of the film, he literally becomes a man-fly. And then from there, this whole film, that's what it's all about, him becoming this humanoid creature. And, you know, it's done real well. I mean, the makeup won an Academy Award, so that's something. And not just that, though, but the acting in this film is really well done, especially by Jeff Goldblum. His character really turns into an asshole throughout the course of the film, because once the pod splices his DNA with the flies, then you see this mannerism. He curses out his girlfriend, Ronnie, played by Gina Davis, and he ends up cheating on her like the next day. And basically what he thinks happened to him is he thinks he's become purified, but when he actually finds out he's spliced with a fly DNA, then he accepts what's inevitable. You know, I heard about this film over the years, and I actually had checked it out a couple of months ago, but going back to rewatch it, I will say is that this is done real well. You have body horror, you have the mannerisms of what happened to Seth Bundle, his transformation not only into the fly, but also how mean he becomes over the course of the film. And obviously, by the end of the movie, he's just downright hideous as this humanoid insect creature. If anything, I think this movie should be remembered, even though it came out 35 years ago, for not only having great makeup, but the acting is really well done. This film's legacy speaks for itself. Now, I have talked to some people over the years, they enjoyed this film quite well. And not just that though, but you see Seth Bundle's transformation all throughout this film. He's this normal, ordinary guy, and at the end of the movie, he's this monster. There are certainly some interesting things that goes on in this film. You know, the character development in this film is done real well. I mean, Seth Bundle is a nice, generous scientist, but then when he becomes spliced with the fly DNA, then, well, he becomes a prick. He becomes mean, like I mentioned before. And it's the de-evolution of Seth Bundle, the human, into the man-fly. And once again, the makeup is just great. Like, you see how horrible his looks become over time of the film. And of course, it's like this a month that this film goes through. And you see how horrible he looks at the end of the film. And not just that though, but one thing I also want to point out, Ronnie, she doesn't get out of this like really unscathed either. I mean, she ends up, spoiler warning, pregnant into this movie, and it just complicates things. And this is an interesting horror film from the 1980s. For years I heard about it, but I had never checked it out. But seeing the film already at this point, it is an interesting take on what this film is like a metaphor for like certain diseases or whatever. And basically how one man's confidence is it's his downfall basically. If you were a fan of a horror genre, I would suggest you check this out because this is certainly an interesting film to say the least. I'm giving this film an 8 out of 10. Certainly one of the most interesting horror films that came out during the 1980s. Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, they pretty much carried this movie. But Jeff Goldblum, his mannerisms in this film as Seth Bundle. Knowing that Seth Bundle is losing what makes him human. And not just that, by the end of the movie, he's completely unrecognizable and he's just this giant insect. Even in the film, Seth refers to himself as the bundle fly, like a new species of fly. And you know, it's like kind of fortunate that this happened to this scientist. And this movie has a tragic ending. It's a love story, And not just that though, but it's a story about what happens when a scientist doesn't fully conduct his experiments. It's an unfortunate accident what happens to Seth Bundle in this film. And that's my review of the 1986 film, The Fly. Alright, leave your comments down below in the section and let me know what you think about this film if you have seen it. Alright, stay tuned, I have more interesting movie reviews coming up on my channel. Okay, this is Slim Guy 172 saying, peace out.